The late afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grandview estate, casting golden light across the elegant ballroom where my wedding reception was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors as 200 guests danced, laughed, and celebrated what should have been the happiest day of my life. I stood at the edge of the dance floor in my $3,000 wedding dress, though my family believed it was a $200 knockoff from a discount bridal shop, watching my new husband Michael spin my flower girl niece around to the music. Everything was perfect. The 5-course dinner prepared by award-winning chefs, the premium open bar, the live jazz band, the stunning floral arrangements that probably cost more than most people's cars. But perfection came with a price that apparently no one in my family believed I could afford. "I still can't believe she managed to book this place," my mother whispered loudly to my Aunt Carol, not bothering to check if I was within earshot. "The Grandview estate costs $50,000 just for the venue rental, not counting food, drinks, flowers, or entertainment." Aunt Carol glanced around the opulent ballroom with obvious appreciation. "It must be Michael's family paying for all this. Thank God that girl finally found someone with money." I pretended to be fascinated by my bouquet as I listened to them dissect my financial situation for the entertainment of our relatives. "Poor thing has been struggling for years with that little photography business," Mom continued, "taking pictures of babies and high school seniors for $200 a session. I keep telling her to get a real job, but she insists on pursuing this artistic dream." My cousin Janet joined the conversation, wine glass in hand. "Well, at least she found a husband who can support her properly. Michael's construction company must be doing well if they can afford a wedding like this." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and frustration. Here I was on my wedding day, listening to my own family speculate about my finances and dismiss my career as if I weren't standing right there. The truth was, Michael and I had split the wedding costs evenly, despite my offering to pay for the entire event. He'd insisted on contributing equally because he said it was important to him to feel like a partner rather than someone being supported by his wife's money. It was one of the many reasons I loved him. He saw me as an equal, not a charity case. "I just hope she's not going into debt for this," Mom said with a sigh. "You know how young people are these days. No sense of financial responsibility." That comment stung particularly deeply since I'd been financially supporting my parents for the last 3 years without them knowing it. The mysterious insurance settlement that had paid off their mortgage? That was me. The sweepstakes winnings that had covered Dad's medical bills? Also me. The church scholarship that had sent my younger brother to college? Me again. Michael appeared at my side, looking handsome in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. "Hey beautiful. Why do you look upset? This is supposed to be the best day of our lives." I forced a smile. "Just listening to family commentary about our financial situation." He followed my gaze to where Mom was still holding court with her theories about who was paying for what. "Your mom is doing the thing again, isn't she?" he asked quietly. The thing was what we called my family's tendency to discuss my supposed poverty as if I were either not present or not capable of hearing them. "It's fine," I said. "I'm used to it." "Well, I'm not," Michael said, his jaw tightening. "It's our wedding day, Sophia. You shouldn't have to listen to people talking about you like you're some kind of charity case." Before I could stop him, Michael was walking toward my mother's group. I hurried after him, hoping to prevent what was about to become a very awkward confrontation. "Excuse me, Mrs. Martinez," Michael said with exaggerated politeness. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about the wedding expenses." Mom looked flustered at being directly confronted. "Oh, Michael. We were just admiring how beautiful everything is. You and your family have really outdone yourselves." "Actually, Mrs. Martinez, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sophia and I split all the wedding costs 50-50. She insisted on paying for exactly half of everything, including this venue." The group went quiet. Mom's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been panic. But how could she afford? Mom started, then caught herself. How could she afford her half of a $150,000 wedding? Michael's voice was getting louder, drawing attention from nearby guests. "Maybe because she runs a successful business that generates over $2 million in annual revenue." I grabbed his arm. "Michael, please. No, Sophia. I'm tired of watching your family treat you like you're broke when you're probably the most successful person in this room." Aunt Carol's wine glass nearly slipped from her hand. $2 million? That's when I saw Richard Grandview approaching our group with a warm smile. Richard was the owner of Grandview Hospitality Group, which operated luxury venues across the region. He was a distinguished man in his 60s who treated his properties like works of art and his clients like royalty. "Miss Taylor," he called out, using my maiden name as he'd known me professionally for several years. "I hope you're enjoying your special day." I smiled at him, grateful for the interruption. "Richard, everything has been absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for making this day magical." "It's my pleasure. And I wanted to personally thank you again for the acquisition. Having Taylor Creative Holdings purchase our entire chain has been the best thing that could have happened to our company." The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just been dropped in the middle of our family gathering. Mom's face went completely white. "Acquisition?" Richard beamed with pride. "Oh yes. Miss Taylor's company acquired Grandview Hospitality Group 6 months ago. We now have the capital to expand to 12 new locations across the state. It's the most exciting development in our company's history." He turned to me with obvious admiration. "Your vision for combining luxury events with cutting-edge digital marketing has already increased our bookings by 300%. The photography and videography packages you've integrated are revolutionary." My cousin Janet made a sound like she was choking on her wine. "Photography packages?" Mom whispered. "Oh, you must be so proud of your daughter," Richard continued, oblivious to the family drama he'd just ignited. "Taylor Creative Holdings isn't just about photography anymore. The event planning division, the luxury venue chain, the digital marketing agency, she's built quite an empire." He gestured around the ballroom. "And having her wedding at her own venue was such a lovely touch. Though I suppose technically it's free when you own the place." Richard laughed at his own joke while my family stared at me in stunned silence. "Empire?" Aunt Carol repeated weakly. "Absolutely. 15 venues across 3 states. A team of 200 photographers and event coordinators, partnerships with luxury hotels and resorts. Forbes called her one of the most innovative entrepreneurs in the wedding industry." Michael was trying not to smile as he watched my family process this information. "I should let you get back to celebrating," Richard said. "But Miss Taylor, the board meeting is scheduled for next Thursday to discuss the Las Vegas expansion. We're all very excited about the opportunities there." "Thank you, Richard. I'll see you Thursday." After he walked away, the silence that followed was deafening. 5 family members stood in a circle, staring at me like I'd just revealed I was an alien from another planet. Mom was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sophia, you own this place?" I nodded. "Among others. Grandview was actually my first major acquisition. I've been expanding the business model to other markets." "But you said you take pictures of babies," Janet said weakly. "I do. That's how I started, doing portrait sessions and wedding photography. But I also noticed that most venues had terrible marketing, outdated websites, and no social media presence. So I started offering those services too." I looked around at my family's shocked faces. Then I realized I could offer complete packages: venue, photography, planning, catering, entertainment. Instead of just taking pictures at weddings, I could create entire wedding experiences. Michael stepped closer to me, his hand finding mine. "When venues started struggling during the pandemic, I had the capital to acquire them at reasonable prices. Now we offer luxury wedding and event services from initial planning through final photography delivery." "How many venues?" Mom asked, her voice hollow. 15 currently. We're opening 3 more next year, plus we're launching a destination wedding division in partnership with resorts in Hawaii and the Caribbean." Aunt Carol sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "You own 15 wedding venues?" 15 luxury event venues. We host weddings, corporate events, galas, and private parties. Last year we coordinated over 2,000 events. The number seemed to hit them like a physical blow. "Sophia," Mom said slowly, "if you have all this money, all this success, why do you live in that little apartment? Why do you drive that old Honda? Why do you dress like—" She gestured at my general appearance, then seemed to realize she was critiquing my fashion choices at my own wedding. "I live modestly because I prefer to reinvest profits back into the business rather than spend money on things that don't matter to me," I explained. "The apartment is convenient and comfortable. The car is reliable and efficient. I save my money for experiences and investments, not status symbols. Michael squeezed my hand. She could afford any car she wants. She chooses to drive the Honda because it's practical and environmentally friendly. But why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, tears starting to form in her eyes. Why let us think you were struggling? This was the question I'd been dreading. Because every time I tried to talk about expanding my business, you told me to be realistic and get a steady job with benefits. When I mentioned buying equipment or hiring employees, you said I was being irresponsible with money I didn't have. I took a deep breath. When I tried to explain my business plan for acquiring venues, you said I was living in a fantasy world. So I stopped trying to share my successes with the family. But we thought you needed help, Mom protested. We've been worried about you for years. I know. And I appreciate that you care. But your worry was based on assumptions, not facts. You assumed I was failing because my business model didn't look like traditional employment. A server appeared with a tray of champagne and I gratefully accepted a glass. The conversation was emotionally draining, even though it was long overdue. Mom, do you remember 3 years ago when you and Dad were about to lose the house because of his medical bills? She nodded reluctantly. And then you got that call from the insurance company saying there had been an error in processing, and they were covering everything retroactively? Yes, it was a miracle. We never understood why. It wasn't the insurance company. I paid those bills directly and had my lawyer structure it to look like an insurance settlement so you wouldn't feel obligated to pay me back. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. And the church scholarship that sent David to college? That was the Taylor Creative Holdings Educational Foundation, which I established specifically to help family members pursue their dreams without having to ask for help directly. My brother David, who had been standing nearby and apparently listening to everything, stepped forward with wide eyes. Sophia, you paid for my college? I established a scholarship program. You earned it through your grades and your essay about wanting to become a teacher. The foundation just made it possible. How much? Mom whispered. How much money have you spent helping us? I looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. Including the mortgage payoff, medical bills, college tuition and various other assistance over the years? Approximately $400,000. The number hit the group like a physical blow. Several people had to sit down. But you never said anything, David said, his voice shaking. You let us think it was scholarships and insurance settlements and lucky breaks. Because I wanted you to feel proud of your accomplishments, not indebted to me. You earned that college degree, David. The scholarship just removed financial barriers. I turned to Mom. And you and Dad worked hard your entire lives and didn't deserve to lose your home because of medical costs you couldn't control. I had the ability to help, so I did. But why keep it secret? Aunt Carol asked. Because I know this family. If you'd known the help was coming from me, it would have changed our relationships. You would have either felt obligated to pay me back, which would have been financially impossible, or you would have started expecting assistance instead of appreciating gifts. Michael stepped forward. What Sophia is too modest to tell you is that she's been quietly supporting half the people in this room. The Taylor Creative Holdings Foundation has provided over $2 million in scholarships, medical assistance and emergency funds to family members and employees over the last 5 years. $2 million? Janet repeated faintly. That's just the charitable giving, Michael continued. The business itself is valued at approximately $15 million. Sophia is worth more money than the rest of the family combined, and she's been using that wealth to take care of everyone while letting you believe she was the one who needed help. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of the band starting a new song. Around us, the wedding reception continued as our family processed revelations that changed everything they thought they knew about me. Sophia, Mom said finally, I owe you an apology. We all do. We've been treating you like a child who couldn't take care of herself, when all along you've been taking care of all of us. You don't owe me anything, Mom. You're my family. Taking care of family is what you do when you have the ability. But we've been so condescending. So dismissive of your work, your choices, your lifestyle. You were trying to protect me. I understand that. But protection based on false assumptions isn't helpful. It's hurtful. David stepped forward and hugged me tightly. Thank you, he whispered. For college, for believing in me, for making it possible for me to become a teacher. You did the work, David. I just removed some obstacles. Mom was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. You've built something incredible. We're all proud, Aunt Carol added. And we're all ashamed of how we've been talking about you. I looked around at my family, these people who had shaped me, supported me in their way, and yes, sometimes misunderstood me completely. I don't want anyone to feel ashamed. I want us to move forward with better understanding. And I want you to know that despite everything, despite the frustration and hurt feelings, I love this family and I always will. Michael wrapped his arm around my waist. And now they know that when you said you wanted to pay for half the wedding, you weren't being stubborn or proud. You were being generous by not paying for the whole thing. That actually made Mom laugh through her tears. Speaking of the wedding, I said, there's one more thing you should probably know. I gestured toward the band which had just finished their set. See the musicians? That's the Taylor Creative Holdings house band. They perform at all our venues. And the photographer getting candid shots over there? She's my business partner and co-founder of the company. Even the band? Janet asked weakly. We employ about 200 people across all our properties. Photographers, planners, musicians, caterers, florists, venue coordinators. It's a comprehensive operation. The DJ took the microphone to announce the father-daughter dance, and Dad appeared at my side looking slightly overwhelmed by everything he'd apparently overheard. Sweetheart, he said quietly, your mother told me what we just learned. I don't have words for how proud I am, or how sorry I am that we didn't understand. Dad, let's just focus on celebrating tonight. We can talk about everything else later. As he led me onto the dance floor, I could see my family members scattered around the ballroom, some sitting in stunned silence, others animatedly discussing what they'd just learned. The revelation had completely changed the dynamic of the evening, but not in a bad way. You know what the best part of this is? Dad said as we swayed to the music. What's that? Watching you and Michael start your marriage with complete honesty. No secrets about money, no pretending to be something you're not. That's a good foundation. It is, I agreed. Though I'm not sure the family needed to learn everything quite so dramatically. Dad chuckled. Sometimes the truth needs a dramatic entrance to be properly heard. As the song ended and Michael cut in for the next dance, I realized that Dad was right. For years, I'd been allowing my family to believe a version of me that wasn't real. Tonight they finally met the actual me, successful, generous, independent, and capable of taking care of not just myself but all of them. No regrets? Michael asked as he spun me around. None. It feels good to finally be seen for who I really am. Even if it means your mom is going to spend the next 5 years apologizing for underestimating you? I laughed. Especially then. As the evening continued, I noticed a subtle but significant change in how my family interacted with me. The condescending advice stopped. The worried glances disappeared. Instead, I found myself in conversations about business, investments, and future plans. For the first time in years, they were asking for my opinion rather than offering unsolicited guidance. It was exactly the wedding gift I hadn't known I wanted. The gift of being seen, understood, and respected by the people who mattered most to me. Later that night, as Michael and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, Mom pulled me aside one final time. Sophia, I need you to know something. I'm not just proud of your success or your money. I'm proud of your kindness, your generosity, and the way you've taken care of this family without asking for recognition. Thank you, Mom. That means everything to me. And I promise no more assumptions about your life or your choices. If I want to know something, I'll ask instead of guessing. That sounds perfect. As our car pulled away from the Grandview estate, my venue, my business, my success story, I reflected on how completely the evening had changed. Not just because my family finally understood my financial situation, but because we'd established a new foundation for our relationships based on truth rather than assumptions. Tomorrow, Michael and I would fly to Hawaii for our honeymoon at a resort where Taylor Creative Holdings was launching our destination wedding division. But tonight, I was simply a woman who had married the love of her life in her own venue, surrounded by family who finally saw her for who she really was. It was, without question, the perfect wedding day.